Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
No problems at all. Just before, mate, you pulled up in the big rig.
Yes, sir.
The 120 series.
120 Prado, 2007. Yes, sir. Toyota Land Cruiser.
Do you recommend them?
Oh, man. Best thing I ever bought. Just like at the time, which was 2 years ago, wanted a lifestyle change, something that I could actually go out and do a bunch more stuff, bit of camping, bit of four-wheel driving, off-roading. Best thing I ever did, man. It was so good.
Yeah, man, they're such a nice car. Like, I've always toyed with getting one. Like, I'd love to get one.
Mate, you should do it. What are
Are
you waiting for?
It's hard to find the right one, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I had a patient that was like right into four-wheel drive. So every time I talked to him, he would like tell me a little bit about them. And then I reached out to him. I was like, mate, I'm looking for one. Can you get one for me? Or like, can you look out for one for me? And he sent me like a whole bunch and was like, go have a look at this one. Went and had a look, bought it. Best thing I did.
So were there things you had to consider when you were buying them? Were you looking at the different models? Did you know which one you preferred, for example, petrol versus diesel, that sort of stuff?
I was told like petrol is more expensive to run, but less expensive to maintain. Whereas diesel is like it's cheaper to run. Like diesel it goes a bit further for what you're putting into it, but you have to maintain it a bit more, more regular servicing. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I went with the petrol. I went off his recommendation and joined a few Facebook groups and they were kind of all leaning petrol. Like it's expensive. It's my weekend car. I've still got my old Mazda sort of shit box that I drive Monday to Friday. But I just use that as like the weekender lifestyle, go and do something fun. Or if someone's going to see it, like you today, I was like, I don't want to drive my Mazda bomb here because you'll see it. So I'll drive the Land Cruiser. And you got in, so.
Mate, I couldn't think anything less of you, so it's all good.
Yeah, right.
But I think everyone needs a just a shit car.
Oh man, it's like such an ego check for me. When I go to the gym, it's like, it's the worst car that's there every time. And I'm like, it's an ego check just to be like, it's okay. Like, I don't need to have a really nice car. Like, I like feel almost like get insecure and feel judgment. And I'm like, no, it's like, it keeps me in check.
It's a good reframe, hey?
Yeah.
It's like the Mazda doesn't reflect who I am as a person.
Yeah.
I mean, it does in a way. Like, I guess you're a very practical person.
True.
So I guess in a way it does. But
it helps
not looks though. Like, I think
it helps me
you're very
face
handsome,
my.
of course.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, it helps me face my demons, like society demons of like this expectation of you to like have a nice car, and that says something about you. So getting in the Mazda, it's like, yeah, it just makes me feel like, I don't have to have a super nice car.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me less of a person. I hope not anyway. So, material stuff. So it's good to keep the ego in check in that sense.
Of course. Speaking of society demons, do you think those kind of society demons are a bit more prevalent today than they maybe have been in the past, or same?
No, I think they are more so. I think like having like social media really now just lets you compare yourself to others. And like, I couldn't make a social media channel with my shitbox Mazda of being like, look at my car, look at this lifestyle that I'm in with my car. Whereas, if I had like a super nice car and more material things, then it probably would make for more viewership. Like, I think that's just where sort of society leans to have nicer stuff and nicer experiences. So is there more expectations? Like, I guess so. Like if you get caught up in that kind of stuff of like trying to view yourself through society's lens, then I think there's more of it than say what my grandparents have.
Yeah.
Or what my grandparents had. The expectations of them were very different. But I think like, the old homage is always you're trying to keep up with your neighbor. That was always like the case once upon a time. Whereas now it's like you're trying to keep up with the infinite amount of people on the internet.
Yeah.
So it's like that extra level of expectation.
It's even more unrealistic now, isn't
it? Exactly. You're not trying to one up your neighbor. You're trying to just like keep up with all this crazy, amazing stuff that you're seeing. I think anyway. That's I feel like the projection of society on me through social media anyway, which I have to try and distance myself from a bit.
Yeah, that's good, man. It sounds healthy doing that because it's very easy to fall into that comparison kind of model in my experience anyway, of seeing perfect people on social media. Obviously, they never post any bad things about themselves. And so you just get this image of them which is completely unrealistic.
For sure.
And yeah, I don't think that's good, especially for humans. Like we generally do, doesn't matter how secure we are, like even the most secure person, generally, in my experience anyway, they tend to still compare themselves every now and again to somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I've got like a 7-month-old at home, and there's something like super pure and innocent and beautiful about a baby because they haven't been corrupted by society. Like they're perfect. And like I worry that at some stage I'm going to have to introduce him, or he's going to be introduced to social media and all the rest of it and all these other sort of expectations on him and how that's going to shape him. And it's like, I look at him and I'm like, oh, he's so perfect. He's so beautiful. We lose that at some stage, I think. Like as soon as you start comparing yourself to others and just having everyone else's influence on you, then it kind of starts to change, I think, like at the heart, like, you know, at your core, what really matters.
For sure.
And I look at him and I'm like, oh, I just hope he can stay as pure and as beautiful and as innocent, as uncorrupted as possible forever. But I know at some stage, you know, it's inevitable.
Yeah, environment's a huge factor, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. And have you thought much about what it is about social media which might corrupt or take the innocence of maybe younger people who didn't witness what's on social media prior?
I think so. Yeah, I think there's like definitely been a change in recent, you know, generations, especially, that you do get this influence. I think depending on which, like where you kind of sit on what you view and the algorithms kind of going towards you, it does give you like a negative. I don't know. I look at social media and I think, okay, go back 50 years and say that you're going to have a supercomputer in your pocket, on you at all times, access to any information in the world, and you think like, holy shit, like we're going to be so advanced when that happens. Can you imagine like the idea of back then you have to go to a library and look things up? You know, not everyone was going to do that. Now we have a whole library and more in our pocket.
Yep.
But we look at actually what we're doing with that. We're not using it for that purpose.
No, yeah.
Like the vast majority, I think like it's only getting worse each generation, but like it's just becoming like a dopamine hit. It's becoming an addiction of, you know, you're looking at things to get a bit of dopamine, and they've got to be quicker videos now, it seems. Like the shorter videos, the better. And then as a result, I think the worse the attention span becomes of someone.
Yeah.
So like, you know, does it have a good impact on us really? I think it's getting worse and worse as like more things are competing for your attention and your dopamine, and then we just become dopamine junkies at the core really when you look at it. So yeah, I don't think it's good.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying there, because it is such a wild idea of having these supercomputers in your pocket, which you can access at any time, and you can get all the information you've ever wanted and more immediately. Yet look at the fabric of our society, look at the insecurity, look at the people who are feeling worse when they get off social media than when they got on. And for me personally, when I think about it, I kind of think about who it is running social media companies. You know, it's not like some soothsayer who wants the world to do better. It's like some dude who's trying, or companies rather, who are trying to monetize attention.
For sure.
Why do you think though that some kids or some children are more susceptible to forming the addiction to social media than others? Because not all people have a problem with social media.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And like I'm thinking about this more and more now that I have my own son. And I guess I see other kids at different ages now, and I think like what is going on. And I think really at its core, especially in Sydney and probably in cities, is that parents are just like super busy. We're now living a time where it's like much more common for both parents to work, and as a result, both of them are super busy, and both of them will just generally have a bit less time for their kids. So I think now it's much more common to just give your child a device to keep them distracted, keep them occupied, so then you can do what you need to do. So I just think that I've noticed such a big difference in kids, like treating patients over the years. Some bring in their kids, and you see differences. Like some of them will just jump on the iPad and they're just sucked into the iPad for the whole treatment. And it's not very like pleasant trying to talk to them because they don't want to engage with you because they've got this like amazing dopamine sort of hit that they can look at. Whereas other ones that don't, like they might draw on the board, for instance, or actually want to talk to you and ask questions. I'm like, they're so pleasant to interact with and talk with. And it's like, well, what's the difference there? And I think it's just like how normal it is for a parent to then give their child a device, and how long do they give that child the device for? Because if you are super young and you're getting this device, then you just become much more addicted and rely on it for dopamine at a much younger age. Whereas if you have sort of limits on it, then you're not like, I don't think you can form as much of an addiction, because you're not allowed to be, you're not allowed to be exposed to it for as long as a time. So looking at my son and like, what are we trying to do here? I'm already trying to get him away from the TV as much as possible, like face him away from the TV. So that's not something that he watches, because I look at him when he does look around, he just, as soon as he finds the TV, he's just like looking at like, what is that? Like all these crazy colors and movements, and it's like a beautiful sort of picture. So I can see like, if I just handed him an iPad to keep him distracted, then that would then become his world. And as someone that's, been a big gamer in the past myself, what I noticed when I was gaming was everything else in life became much more dull. Like now I do love going outdoors and doing the camping and the forward driving, and that gives me like a natural bit of dopamine. It's really enjoyable and I feel connected to it. But at uni, when I was much more into gaming, the idea of going for a bushwalk was so boring, because it's just like, why would I go for a bushwalk? Like, I've got this amazing game. I can play Call of Duty. I can get on this amazing kill streak. Why would I want to go for a bushwalk? There's nothing there. It's boring. Yeah. So I think that if you give that to kids at a young age, then everything else becomes boring, and then you become much more reliant on a device.
Yeah, it makes sense that exposing your child to too much of the device early on could impact their brain in a way where they need that device to kind of feel good, I suppose, which is kind of what dopamine does. There is a lot of evidence now, and there's a psychologist, a child psychologist called Jonathan Haidt. Okay. And he speaks a lot about the formation of identity within children and also addiction and those sorts of problems, because at the end of the day, for all parents, their son or daughter or their child may be exposed to social media or drugs or whatever it may be. It's interesting because there are people, for example, who believe that the addiction is not in the product. So it's not the game.
Right.
It's not the drug. Mm-hmm. It's what the person brings to that product. So, for example, online shopping, for example, is not addictive. It's not anything. It's just online shopping. Yet some people become addicted to it. So there seems to be, a lot of research at the moment supports the idea of secure attachment in children. So what that is does a child have a positive view of themselves, and does a child have a positive view of others? Right. And nowadays what they're saying is the number one determining factor for whether a child grows up in a secure way and is secure is the quality of care from their parents. Mm-hmm. So it's how attuned the parents are to the child, so that the child develops the neurocircuitry, which is responsible for their perception of themselves and of others. And basically, they say that the more secure the child, the less likely they are to give in to, say, the desires of social media or drugs, for example. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well. Like, I grew up in a bit of a broken house where it was just me and my mum, and gaming for me at a young age was like very much escapism. Like, I could go into this world where I just felt much more sort of connected to it. So yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. That makes perfect sense. I think it seems, you would know much more about this than I do, but as we're sort of understanding more about trauma, and a lot of it seems to stem from childhood. Definitely. It's like how are you treated as a child? How do you feel love from a parent? And, I'm glad we're discussing more of that these days, and we're becoming much more aware of it, because I need to make sure, for my son, that I give him as much love as I possibly can, and that he feels he can be himself and he doesn't have to have that sense of escapism to go somewhere else or to be on a device. But I guess that kind of ties into what I was saying before, which is that, like, if parents are super busy,
then they'll be a little bit more inclined to like give their child a device.
Definitely.
So then they can just go off into the device and it's less sort of strain on the parents, or at least like it's less work for them to do, as harsh as that sounds. But I think that's the reality.
Yeah, I think that's the reality, and there's nothing wrong with a parent kind of wanting to do that. However, it does have an impact. And so discussing those impacts is important. There's a guy called Gabor Mate who I absolutely love, and he wrote a book called The Myth of Normal, and he essentially talks about mental illness in society, and he comes to the conclusion that mental illness is just a symptom of a sick society.
Right.
And what you're talking about, he actually talks a lot about in the book, which is that parents nowadays are super stressed, especially in Sydney. You look at house prices. Nowadays, when we say, oh, we want to buy a house for $1.5 million, we're like, oh, that's cheap. But there's a bit of a disconnect between $1.5 million and how long it would take you to save that much money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. And as a result, how do people make money? Well, they need to spend time making money.
Yeah.
And the more time we spend away from our families, the less likely we are to meet the needs of our children.
100%.
You're talking about parents who get home and they're really tired, understandably so.
Yeah.
So they give the child an iPad with Cocomelon on it. That child might not need Cocomelon. Maybe the child actually needs connection to the parent, but the parent comes home and they're really tired. What are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's a bit of an issue, but I think just talking about it and raising awareness around it might create a better society, and especially one that's better for children.
Yeah, man. I agree. 100%.
So you're a gamer. You
Yes.
were a gamer.
Yep.
Self-proclaimed gamer.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like saying that out loud makes me feel like sick.
Does it?
It does, man. And hearing you say that also just makes me feel a bit like it's not what I want to identify as or have as part of my identity, because like I do feel it's such an addiction.
Okay.
But yeah, grew up as a gamer for sure, and like definitely something that I struggle with to this day.
Yep.
Of gaming. And yeah, also I was saying before how like I was finding bushwalks and more natural stuff very boring when I was gaming. And just to sort of follow up on that, when I don't game, I get a lot more enjoyment out of the stuff that was once boring when I was gaming.
Yep.
So the gaming for me is like, it takes up so much of my headspace to the point where like I've been at work in the past and all I'm thinking about is getting home so I can game.
Yep.
And it's just like I'm running it through in my mind of like, what I'm going to do when I'm gaming and like what I really want to do and this like, just the process of the gaming in my head.
Just strategizing.
Yeah. And it took a while for me to realize like that's not good. Like that's actually really unhealthy to have it take up so much of my space in my mental space, because it's not, I don't feel like it's real. Like it's just a distraction.
Sure.
And it takes me away from my purpose of what I want to do and the kind of person that I want to be. So, it's like it's jarring when I say it out loud, like as a gamer and hearing like, oh, you're a gamer. Because it's like it's a bit of an insecurity, I guess, because it's like I don't want to be.
Sure.
But I definitely have been for the vast majority of my life.
Yeah. Okay. How did you deal with that problem when you recognize that, hey, this is taking too much of my mental space? What were the steps that you took to kind of maybe overcome that and put yourself in a different trajectory? I've
definitely like had the realization of, okay, this isn't good for me, because I think it would always hit me to some extent if I had a late night of gaming and then I'd go to bed and I'd be like, man, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't want to do that tomorrow. And I would just have this like sense of guilt of like, that wasn't the right thing to do, like all day today. And then I'd wake up in the morning and like start getting that itch, it's like, I can't wait to buddy jump back on, log back in. So it was always there in the background, but look, really, and I've had periods of time over the last, let's say, 10 years where I have quit gaming for maybe like 6 months at a time. And then I'll start going back in some capacity. It's like this little demon inside me that's like, you can go back, but just for an hour a day. And then I'm like, yeah, look, why can't I just do an hour a day? And then next thing you know, it's an hour a day. But an hour a day doesn't even like itch the surface of like what I'm after.
Yeah.
And then it turns to 2 hours and then 5 hours. And then the next thing you know, it's like I'm gaming as much as I possibly can. So it's one of those things where I know now, like if I just let in a little bit, there's no such thing as letting in it a little bit.
Yep.
It just takes over.
Yeah.
So the biggest rip the Band-Aid off moment for me was like my wife being pregnant, having a son, and thinking about what kind of life do I want for him. And in the back of my mind over the last, growing up really, I would have thought, oh, how cool would it be to game like with my son or like with my kids? And in my head, I'm like, that would be awesome. Like that'd be cool. Like have a little, little clan in a sense at home. And the more that I thought about it as my wife was pregnant, the more I was like, I don't want that for my son. Like I don't want him to game at all, if I can help it, because like it hasn't benefited me in life at all. Other than I'd say maybe it kept me out of trouble at uni instead of going out and drinking and partying and being exposed to an environment that could lead to, bad decisions or something bad, negative happening.
Yeah.
It was like I was in the safety of my own home. And so it's like a fine line, it's like.
I'm going to presume it also kind of made you feel good when you were doing it.
What's that, gaming?
Gaming back then.
Oh, yeah. Loved it during. I mean, and it's always, I think it's really fun if you can do it in a setting where you've got friends that are playing as well, because like that was kind of my uni days of going onto Discord and logging in with a couple of uni mates and like playing some sort of like battle royale back then, like PUBG and Call of Duty Warzone and stuff. And that was great fun times. And probably in some sense healthier than going out and getting on the piss and having a big night. So, I could see some positives of it, especially throughout uni, especially when I was in my Masters, because it did keep me out of trouble. But when my wife was pregnant, that's when I sort of really ripped the Band-Aid off on a lot of things. I got therapy because I wanted to sort myself out so I didn't have, issues that I'd pass on from my generational trauma that seems to get passed on. I didn't want to pass that to my son because I grew up without a dad. So I was like, I want to be able to be a dad for my son and live vicariously sort of through him in that sense of having a dad. So I want to do the stuff that dads, stereotypically kind of do, the camping trips, the forward driving, the cars kind of stuff, and more sort of hands-on type of experiences.
Yeah, okay.
And that's really what, I saw as being the best fit for my son's experience of childhood. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm not gaming. I'm stopping.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wanted to go back, and before you were kind of saying that it kind of made you feel sick to associate yourself with kind of that gamer stereotype. And I think that's a really common response for people who, well, I know for myself personally, who's also dealt with addiction in one form or another, we can tend to really criticize ourselves and be critical. And I'm going to go further than guilt and shame ourselves. It's not just, we've done a bad thing. It's we are terrible, and we're doing this thing because we are terrible. And I just wanted, there was a Gabor Mate quote that actually stood up to me while you were speaking there, and one which I really, really, really love. It's about loving who you are right now and also wanting to get better.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, I think a lot of people go to the gym, or a lot of people do things because they hate themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we kind of do it out of spite for ourselves, when I think a lot of the work is trying to accept us for who we are, recognize that addiction is an attempt to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And if we can look at ourselves in a more compassionate way, where we can be more accepting of others who might fall into those same mistakes and assist them. Just quickly, you mentioned that you grew up without a dad. I wanted to know, how has it been raising a child as a father without maybe a father figure?
Man, it's been the best thing ever. Best thing I ever did, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like having my son and the high that came with that was like, just blew me away. Like I in the back of my mind, I always wanted kids, but actually having him just like changed my life in so many ways that, I just didn't know I could love something so much. Like he's just the best thing ever to me, and to my wife, of course. But I guess there was like an added level of sadness that came with that, because I realized like, holy shit, this is the best feeling. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like how then can I put myself in my dad's shoes and leave?
Wow.
You know, and I reached out to him because he lives in Greece. And he's always tried, you know, it's one of those things where like he messages and he tries to call and stuff. It's very broken communication because I don't let it in very well, like from him.
Sure,
I just don't want to, I guess there's like a level of spite that's there in a sense, or I just haven't forgiven him because I'm like, you weren't here my whole life. So like, I'm not going to give you the pleasure of talking to you from a distance. But I did message him just to say like, I can't believe you left. Like how could you leave? Like, especially looking at my son, just being like, there's nothing more that I want than to protect him and to be there for him and to make sure that everything's okay in his life, like to the best of my ability. So that was like a bit of a triggering moment for me. To have that. And there's always, you know, he's got obviously his side of his story and my mum's got her side.
Cool.
And, you know, that is what it is. But I love it. The idea of like being a dad at the same time as being able to be a kid again for me is like, it's so healing for me in a lot of ways. Because I don't know, there's something really nice about being able to be there for him and nurture him and have what I didn't have. And it makes me appreciate it a whole lot more, like seeing what his experience of having a dad is like. And I wouldn't say like growing up without a dad, it wasn't something that like was super hurtful to me at the time. I was never like, oh, I really want a dad. I always looked for like male figures, which I could never really find, like male figures to look up to, that is. But yeah, I want to be that for my son. And it inspires me to be a better person. And yeah, it's truly best thing I ever did. Wish I'd done it sooner.
I'm so happy to hear that for you.
Thanks,
you know
man.
what I mean?
Yeah, thank you.
No, really. I haven't really heard too many people speak as passionately about you as their newborn. Like obviously people are passionate, but I can just see a shift in you when you speak about your son, you know?
Yeah, thanks, man. I tell you, it's been a weird experience for me talking to a lot of dads, and I bumped into a family friend the other day, for instance, and he was like, how's fatherhood? And I'm like, it's amazing. It's the best thing ever. They're just like so amazing. They're so beautiful. And he gave the same response that a lot of people seem to give, which is like, oh, like, okay, it's almost like a shock. Like, oh, really? I'm like, I don't know what it is. There's like a bit of a disconnect I've noticed. I don't know if it's older, it's, previous generations where maybe you're like not as emotionally available or something, that you can't be, I don't know, you can't almost say that you've got as much love to give in a sense, or like your love is withdrawn a little. Not love is withdrawn, but
you can't express that love.
Yeah, you can't. That's what I'm looking for. You can't express the love. And it's a very strange thing for me, which is very common with older generations. I look at my grandfather, hard ass wog, like full like tough as nails. They don't make people like that anymore. Like they don't exist because he went through such hardship.
Yeah. You just get cancelled nowadays anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think there's a bit more of a shift these days. Like it's more okay, more accepted to be loving as a dad. Because I look at some of my mates and they have a very similar experience. Like they're all like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. Like I love being a dad. They're so amazing. So it's nice to see that a bit of a shift.
Man, that is wonderful. That it's very true what you're saying. I listened to a podcast recently where they were talking about the effects on boys in particular in homes where their dad wasn't present.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as someone who's experienced that, I'm sure you know that better than most. But that male role model or that father figure to be there in a child's life, but not only just be there, but to be able to be emotionally available and express their love for their child, is invaluable in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think so. It's I think it should be very well accepted to like be loving of your kids. Why the fuck not?
Yeah, what kind of society are we living in if we can't say, I love my kids, or I love you? You know, like absolutely. Let's normalize saying that shit.
Yeah.
We should say that shit more. I love you, man.
I love you too, brother.
No, man, thanks for sharing that, because that really provides me with a lot of insight into kids and all that sort of stuff, and into yourself, who I've known for quite a while, but I didn't know all that sort of stuff. When you went off to school and you were finishing school, what made you decide to become an osteo?
When I was about 16, had pain in my upper back, shoulder, neck area. And my mum, you know, as most people do, were like, well, go see a physio. So when I saw a physio, the physio just gave me a bit of a massage through that area. Felt better for a few days. And then it came back and I was like, oh, like it's back. So she's like, I'll take you back. And then after about 4 weeks of going back every week and getting like 2 to 3 days of relief and the pain coming back, one of her friends was like, why don't you go see an osteo? And we were like, what's an osteo? So my mum took me to see this osteo out in Leichhardt in Sydney. And it was a very weird, different experience. You know, she was looking at my hips and my pelvis, and she was telling me like everything's very twisted through here, like something's going on through your hips and your pelvis. And she treated my hips and my pelvis, did all this weird, wacky stuff, pulled my leg down, like cracked my lower back. And I was like, what the hell's going on? This is crazy. Didn't touch my area of pain. And I was like, I looked at her during the treatment, and the way that she was talking and describing everything and just like the weirdness and it was just different to me at that time. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And my mum, I told my mum, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do as a job. So she talked to her and she's like, where did you study? And she said she studied at Lismore. And I will just say that one treatment that I had from the osteo was like a one treatment and I was done. I was fixed.
Wow.
And she was able to tell me that I was sitting on my wallet in my back pocket at school and my pelvis was all twisted as a result. And, you know, I was sitting on my wallet in my back pocket. It was in the back right side. And I used to do like, you know, weird, dumb shit back then of just like collecting every coupon that I could find and like trying to fill my wallet up and being like, you know, I don't know. I just was like at 16, I was like, yeah, having a full wallet is a good thing to do. Just like every coupon receipt, and like I was like, yeah, let's fill the wallet up. Anything that can go in here is going in here. And then as a result, the wallet's getting fatter, and I'm sitting on this like twisted surface. And yeah, it just like caused a bit of a twist in my spine that was manifesting in pain in my upper back and neck on the right side. So from that treatment, I was like, this is what I want to do. My mum took me up to uni the next year. Did like that was up in Lismore. Did a tour of the uni, and it was just in my head. I was very lucky, very, very fortunate early on that at 16, I was like, this is my job. And the thing that really attracted me to it was like, it felt like there was a real art form to it. It wasn't just like a very basic copy and paste type structure of treatment. It was like weird and wacky and thinking outside the box. So there's like a bit of investigation going on. As well as like doing stuff that I thought was really unusual. So to me, it seemed like a bit of an art form, or it was like, you know, a mix of art meets science. And that's when I thought, you know, this is what I want to do. And obviously being a gamer as a young guy as well, I was like, it seemed like something you could level up in yourself. Like it's something that I could get better at. I could hone my craft. It was like a skill that I was learning, which I was really connected to because that was the kind of gaming that I was into at the time, like leveling up your skills with whatever game you're playing. So to me, I was like, this is cool. Like I can level myself up in this form. And I will also say my grandparents came to Australia in the 60s, came from poverty Greece. You know, my grandfather grew up in a house that didn't have floorboards in it. You know, his house, the floor was dirt, which is like such a crazy concept for me to try and fathom. So they didn't have any work over there in you know, in the village in Greece. Lots of work around the farm to help put food on the table, but in terms of like working for money, not the type of thing that they were doing over there because there just wasn't as much of a work style economy or like an economy over there where you could work for money. So they came to Australia in the 60s, worked their absolute arse off, you know, 7 days a week work, 10, 12-hour days was not unusual at all. And just very basic level entry jobs, but worked really hard at them. Like my grandfather was a school cleaner for most of his life, as well as like a bit of a handyman, demolition man. My grandmother was a kitchen hand and then also did some like cleaning and stuff for people's houses. Worked so hard. And my mum also worked really hard at she was like an accounts type style job. But I could see, I was like, they're working so much in their week. And although they were very happy people, like my grandparents, I was like, is this what I want to do? Like, do I just want to go and work really hard for the vast majority of my week? Like, I could almost see in my head a bit of a loophole of like, imagine this life where you are working for most of the week, like we all mostly do, but you actually enjoy what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that seems like such a good idea to me, because my mum was like, why don't you be a pilot? Like why don't you be a doctor? Stuff that was like well paying. So I had that thought of like, do I want something that's well paying, or do I want something that I really enjoy doing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, man, I'm going to do what I really want to do and hone in on that and become an osteopath. And like I just was so fortunate to find that at a young age. And man, I love my job, man. I love being an osteo. I love the growth and development that comes from that. And yeah, great career, great job, great choice by me as a young boy. One of the few things I got right at that age.
Mate, well, yeah, it sounds like you're a really observant teenager, you know, to recognize, well, first of all, to make that connect between what you enjoyed doing, you know, when you're playing your games, etc., and then trying to figure out what you would like to do in the real world, but then also realize that this was something which you were curious about and you had the potential to be really motivated by and enjoy long term.
Yeah.
That's incredible for any young person to do, I think. I think it's very uncommon. So well done for that.
Thanks, man.
Would you say that it's a very common occurrence for pain in the body to be coming from a point which isn't specific to that location? Like for you, it was you had pain through your shoulder, but it was a hip alignment thing. Is that quite a common theme that you observe in the body?
Yeah, I mean, it is super common, which I think is how a lot of people end up at osteo, to be honest. Like pretty much every patient that's seen me, not every, but most of them, have tried physio, they've tried chiro, then they come to osteo. And it's like the last thing that you'd try generally for most people, because it's like the least common, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of success with a lot of different people in that sense of, you know, this previous practitioner was treating this area, but it's like, oh, actually, I think it's coming from elsewhere. But there's so many different ways that can be. Like the body's very complex. I'd say when I got out of uni and during the end of uni, I was like really focused on trigger points. And if you look at a trigger point referral chart, it's pretty mind-blowing. It's really fascinating stuff. You know, you can get trigger points in your scalenes that once they become active, like a trigger point is like a knot within the muscle, right?
Yeah.
Once they become active, they can then cause referral pain down your arm. So they can mimic nerve pain in your neck. They can cause, you know, the muscle at the front of your neck, scalenes, can cause pain at the back of your shoulder, which is crazy because, you know, it's like on the opposite side of the body in a sense. You get trigger points in the glutes that can refer down the leg and mimic sort of sciatic pain or nerve pain in your lower back that travels down the leg. There's all kinds of different referral patterns just from trigger points alone.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can obviously get nerve pain. You know, you get an area in your neck that if you have a disc bulge or some sort of nerve impingement, then that can travel down your arm. So people can get like numbness tingling in their pinky, for instance, or in one of their fingers. I've had a lot of people over the years that have nerve pain in their calf, but just in their calf. And they're like, I'm rubbing my calf, like I've got massages there, but it's not helping. And it's like, okay, this is actually coming from your lower back.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like these weird patterns of, you know, a normal textbook will tell you that sciatic pain will run pretty much from your back into your bum, into the back of your leg, into your calf, and then potentially down to the foot. But for some people, it's just in the calf. And it's like, what about the rest of it?
Mm-hmm.
So there's all weird intricacies and individual variation that can cause referral pain. And the other one is sort of that mechanical structure, biomechanical structure, which is, say, if someone has very tight hips, very immobile hips, very weak hips, that can then lead to lower back pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of, you know, something that's coming from your hips, your glutes, for instance, that then causes lower back pain. So yeah, long answer, but so many different ways that pain can be coming from elsewhere in the body. And I guess on paper, that's kind of what differentiates osteos from physios and chiros, in that we just tend to be a bit more holistic, looking at the whole body instead of just the area of pain. That's on paper anyway, you know, like it's all very blurry. I know some osteos that treat exactly the same as another physio.
Sure, yeah.
There's some osteos that treat completely differently from each other. So there's so much weird variation. I guess the beauty of it, and coming back to what sort of really got me interested in it, is you get taught like a whole toolkit, so many different things, trigger points, muscle work, like massage, stretching, exercise, cracking of the joints or adjustments. And you get to decide which ones of those bits of the toolkit that you're going to use for that patient.
Of course,
So there's so much variation. There's no two osteopaths really, in a lot of ways, that treat exactly the same, because there's going to be little variations in what they do, which is what makes it very unique to the practitioner as opposed to the overall profession.
And I'd imagine you don't really treat any two patients the same way either.
Very rare. Like there's a lot of overlap with some areas, especially with certain patterns that people might have, but no injury is exactly the same. And I think that's where science can get very murky. You know, like when you have these kind of big studies of, you know, let's look at a lower back crack or adjustment for disc pain. And disc pain is like, you know, you can have a disc bulge that's there, and every other muscle and structure around it can be so varied from disc injury to disc injury from one person to the next, that it's really hard to get that sort of straight science of like an adjustment is going to help everyone with a disc bulge. For some people, it helps them significantly. For other people, it makes them worse.
Yeah.
For some people, it helps them a little bit or a lot. Like there's so much variation.
Yeah.
So the science can get very murky in that sense.
Of course. And then it's hard to say the adjustment caused this or didn't cause this, right?
Yeah. And then if you just look at one technique on its own, then that's when it can also get a little bit murky. You know, generally an osteo, and then from one osteo to the next is going to have a different treatment that comprises of multiple techniques, depending on the patient. So I guess that's where I found experience has helped me a lot. You know, seeing patterns, seeing people with certain pain, you know, with certain injuries, has allowed me to become a better practitioner over the years, so that I can register patterns and ways that they might respond versus someone else that I've treated like that didn't respond very well to a different style of treatment.
Speaking of disc herniation.
Yes.
I've got, I want to ask your advice on this one.
Okay.
So maybe 3 years ago, I think we went up to the Whitsundays, Sam and I, and we were jet skiing around. And before we started to jet ski, we were sitting in this room, and the people who were running it were saying, if anyone's got back pain, please stand up. And I thought, it's a really ambiguous question, because it's like, I feel like everyone has back pain. So do I need to stand up? Or I was like, oh, no, I won't say anything. Anyways, we go out jet skiing, Sam's on the back of me, and then the waves got really, really high. And we're just going up and down these waves. Like my ass is just getting pumped against the back seat. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not in a good way. And basically we got off the jet skis, or halfway through really, I was like, fuck, my back is really, really sore here. Yeah. So we swapped over. Sam started to drive. I was on the back. It wasn't her fault, but the waves were getting huge, and sometimes we weren't going over the wave maybe quick enough to dampen the impact. And so I got off, and I just remember standing up, and my back was so sore. I had to hunch over like all the way down the wharf for me to like not have any pain, and for me to actually walk back to what we were doing.
Rough.
And that night I was in so much pain, like I was crying, etc. But we'd booked skydiving for the next day, and Sam's like, "Oh, are we going to be able to do skydiving?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought about it," and I was like, "You know what? Like, I'm comfortable in this position, and if I have the instructor on my back and I'm just hanging off him like he's my dad and I'm a baby, I might be able to get through it." Yeah. So I was just like, "Yeah, it'll be sweet." Anyways, luckily skydiving had to cancel on us. There weren't enough instructors or something.
That is lucky.
And we ended up flying back early because I was in so much pain.
No.
But if I'd gone skydiving, like, have you been skydiving before?
I have, yeah.
How do you think that would have affected my back? Mind you, I had an L4, L5S1 disc herniation.
Yeah. I think it would have been terrible, man. Yeah, I'm very glad that they cancelled on you. It's just that there's so many different movements that come with that.
With jumping out of a plane?
With jumping out of a plane and the body moving in different ways and even the landing with the, you generally land on your ass when you actually land from the skydive.
Yep.
So I think that would have been terrible, man. And look, it's interesting because, the discs act as shock absorbers in your lower back. So jet skiing is like that constant bit of pressure as you're sitting is like coming into your lower back. So then that puts a lot of pressure on the disc.
Yep.
And it sounds like it bulged from that.
Yeah.
And that would have been, not very nice. So I'm glad you didn't go skydiving, man, because just all the different movements that come with that. Your body's pretty good at telling you where it's painful.
Yeah.
When you go into like that setting of you're going to be flying and moving around in ways that you can't really control, then man, that's just I think it's a recipe for disaster. I don't think anything good would have come from it.
No.
That's for sure. Whether it would have been like way worse or not, would be interesting. Like, again, there's so much variation. It could have been fine, could have been way worse.
Of course.
But I think not doing it was the best move in that sense.
Worst case scenario, the disc maybe keeps bulging more into the spinal cord or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance the bulge would have been bigger by the time you landed and the repercussions that would have come from that. Have you done it since?
No, I haven't. I haven't done it since. I haven't done as in jet skiing or skydiving.
Skydiving.
I've only done skydiving once and I haven't done it since then. But I haven't been jet skiing since as well. I think my jet skiing days are over.
Oh yeah? They've ended.
Yeah.
One thing that I found or that I heard with jet skiing is that people that jet ski a lot actually have a higher chance of CTE in the brain.
Yeah, minor concussions.
Yeah, because of just that impact coming into the brain and the brain sort of bouncing in the skull.
Yep.
Is just like constant sort of hits or blows to the brain.
It's crazy as well because I feel like it happens on a level which doesn't indicate that it's really bad.
Yeah.
Therefore, people won't stop.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's just like a lot of minor trauma to the point where you don't really recognize that it is doing much.
Yep.
But over a long enough period of time, that seems to be the case. And that's, the case with a lot of things really is you do a little, like the vast majority of people that I see are desk workers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do desk work for a day, you probably feel fine.
Yep.
But if you do desk work 5 days a week for 20 years, it's going to have its impact on your body for sure.
Yep.
It's just that little bit of tension that comes into your body over a very long period of time that accumulates and builds up, which is, the vast majority of people I see are desk workers.
What are the most common injuries you see in those people who are desk workers?
Lower back pain, really common. That'd be number one. Neck pain, number two.
Mm-hmm.
They're like probably 80%. And then the other sort of, 20% will be shoulder issues, rotator cuff. Interestingly enough, it's very common for desk workers to have rotator cuff tears over a long enough period of time. Just using the mouse, especially right side.
Yeah.
For people using the mouse on their right side, just those constant movements in the day of moving the mouse, typing, like you are moving and rotating your shoulder a lot.
Wow. So we're talking about those micro traumas once again, just over
very
and over
small,
again for 10,000 hours.
Exactly. And it just doesn't give the body a chance to heal and repair. And it's also really common, I think that we should rename tennis elbow to desk worker's elbow because it's so common for people to get, that tennis elbow, which is lateral epicondylitis, of just those micro movements of typing and moving the mouse for an hours every day for weeks, months, years. That builds up.
For sure, because I'd imagine there's more desk workers now than tennis players getting tennis elbow.
Yeah. I mean, I always ask people when they present with tennis elbow, it's like, do you play tennis? They're like, no. Well, it's like, don't start.
Yeah.
Because you have tennis elbow without playing tennis.
Yeah.
But very common desk worker injury.
And what kind of injuries are you seeing in the lower back and neck?
It does vary. Like disc bulges are very common.
Just from sitting?
Yes, from sitting.
Wow. Okay.
It's just that constant pressure that's going into the lower back. And the problem with sitting is like it kind of takes your glutes out of the picture. Your glutes become very inactive, which is very, very common to see desk workers with inactive glutes because they're just sitting on their glutes most of the day.
Wow.
So then you go to stand up and use them, and it's almost like you have this bit of glute amnesia where the glute isn't really doing most of its job.
Yep.
And considering the function of the glute and the stability that it provides for your lower back, it's this big, strong muscle. So if you lose the ability to sort of use that and contract the glute muscles, then it puts a lot of pressure on the lower back and on the discs.
Because the body is just always adapting, isn't it?
I mean, the body is a master at adapting, for better and for worse. Unfortunately, you sit at the desk for the vast majority of your day and your work week, and your body adapts to that. So it's one of those things where your body adapts to its environment really well. So you want to make sure you put it in a good environment of movement and stretching and exercise so that it can adapt positively to those things instead of negatively to the more stagnant type of work situations like the desk work.
Because the body, doesn't really think about this is good or bad. It's like if we're sitting in the desk now, what do you think is kind of the thought process of the body in like shutting off the glutes, for example, when we're say sitting in our chairs right now? Like, why would it do that?
Well, there's no reason for your body to activate your glutes when you're not using your legs and your feet.
So it's like an energy conservation thing, or?
I mean, that's an interesting question. Is it an energy conservation thing? I think it's more of a postural thing, and more of a function in the sense that when you're standing, your glutes are activating to hold you up. They work to extend the hip and the leg. But when you're sitting, they're not really doing anything. They're in a relaxed state. And I also think that the position of the muscle plays a big part. It's very common when I see desk workers because their arms are out in front of them, and I see this with drivers, hairdressers are pretty bad with this as well, is that they'll have very rounded forward shoulders. And if you think about what's happening when you're sitting at a desk or you're driving or if you're hairdressing, your arms are out in front of you, so your shoulders are rolled forward, so your pec muscles, your chest muscles are in a shortened position, and all the muscles that hold your shoulder blade to your spine, like your rhomboids, mid-lower traps, are in a lengthened position. So they become lengthened and weak. These muscles at the front become very tight, and then it just causes that natural position to be rounded forward through the shoulders. And that's just the body adapting to, the environment that it's in.
Wow, really interesting.
Yeah.
I know I've spoken to you in the past about traps in particular and mental health and the association there. I was actually doing a little bit of reading the other day, as I do. And it spoke about so humans with high anxiety obviously have an overactive amygdala in their brain.
Yeah.
And what can happen is, we see a threat that triggers the autonomic nervous system, which sends you to the parasympathetic branch or the sympathetic branch, so fight or flight.
Yep.
And it was saying that when we're in fight or flight, unconsciously the traps will raise up to guard our vital organs like around our neck and that sort of stuff, which I thought was really interesting. Because if we're talking about adaptation, if that's constantly happening for someone, let's just say they've got complex trauma or they've got PTSD, which is where the ANS, autonomic nervous system, has been calibrated in a way which is overactive, then those muscles would be turning on all day, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been told so many times, probably thousands of times, that my shoulders or my traps are very tight. That's where I hold my stress. And it seems like for everyone, because of the way that they're structured, that is where people hold their stress. The interesting relationship with the trap muscles is that the nerve from the trap or to the trap comes directly from the brain. It's an accessory nerve, which is very unique compared to a lot of other muscles in the body, which usually, the connection will be brain to spine, spine to muscle. Whereas with the trap, it's just brain straight to muscle. So when people do feel stressed, those muscles just tend to tighten up and they get into this kind of low-grade shrug. So doing that for a day, probably not a big issue. But when you have a low-grade level of stress, for a long period of time, which seems to be the vast majority of people in Sydney that I treat, then the muscles become very fatigued. They become very tight. And, you obviously said fight or flight being sympathetic nervous system, which is what comes with stress. But that takes you away from parasympathetic, which is rest and digest.
Yep.
And it's during that rest and digest where the body's doing a lot of its healing and repair.
Yep.
So you really want to make sure that you can actually go into that rest and digest mode, be relaxed, be calm, so that your body can heal and repair. Because the problem that then happens if you don't is that your body needs to heal from everyday stresses on the body, physical stresses, mechanical ones. Just being under gravity is one.
Yeah.
And then, for most of my patients, being at the desk is one that they need to heal from. So if they stay in this fight or flight stress response, then they don't heal. They take the tension from that day that hasn't repaired in the body, the micro trauma, then it goes to the next day. And then the cycle repeats. So that you can go weeks, months where your body's not really healing and recovering very well.
Wow, yeah.
But stress is so fascinating, like its impact on the body. I've treated people where, they get back to 100% or at least feeling 100%. And then they can have something really traumatic that happens in their life. And the two big ones that I see is loss of a loved one and starting a new job or a new role. They're like the two big stresses where people respond really negatively to those things physically in their body. They manifest symptoms.
So that's what you've kind of noticed.
Yeah, you can spend, say, 6-8 weeks getting someone feeling back to 100%. They feel great. Then they might come back after feeling 100% for months, maybe even years. Then the really stressful event happens, like starting a new job. You're kind of on edge, a lot of anxiety that comes with that, or death of a loved one. And then all of a sudden, it's like their symptoms just come straight back.
Wow! And
all of a sudden, they're really tight, they're really sore, they feel injured again. So the impact that stress has on the body is really fascinating. Like it is not good for us to stress.
That's really interesting because I presume that it would be blocking recovery.
Yeah,
right?
And I should say, it has its purpose. The whole sympathetic fight or flight, like it is fight or flight. So the classic example is if you see a bear in the wild, your body goes into full fight or flight. And you need to really act quickly so that you can survive, to either have to fight for your life or run away as fast as you can so the adrenaline gets pumping, but you're not repairing your muscles because your body, why would it be repairing in that sense, in that state? Yeah. And then your digestion tends to be quite poor as well. It just, things sort of get put on pause, blood flow goes elsewhere. And that's another interesting symptom that I find with people that have that sort of stuck in that fight or flight state.
Yep.
Where they have digestive issues, constipation, IBS type symptoms, because their body is stuck in this sort of fight or flight, ready for the next bit of danger that comes their way, instead of actually being able to calm down, relax.
Just relaxing.
So, I think that it's really, really important in that setting to make sure that you're doing your mindfulness type helpful things, deep breathing, meditation, exercise is really important. I find for females more than males, taking a nice long bath is like very helpful. For males, it doesn't seem to help as much. But for females, that bit more like self-care seems to like put them in a bit more of a relaxed state and help with stress levels.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas guys, I notice they're just like, I was just bored in there. Yeah. So it's like not the same, it's not the same I find
same
between
recovery
male
process
and
maybe.
female, what helps them relax and let go of some of that stress.
Yeah, I suppose it's pretty subjective. To people who are considering, say, dry needling versus acupuncture, do you know could you explain what the difference between those two? Yeah,
it's a really common question that I get asked. Acupuncture is more whole body system type influence. You'd see an acupuncturist, for instance, if you were stressed. A lot of evidence behind it supporting fertility. My wife actually got acupuncture before she fell pregnant, and we managed to fall pregnant like really quickly. And we were like, thinking it must be the acupuncture. Maybe it would have happened either way, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that it helps with fertility. And then, more systemic stuff like stress, for instance, it can just help calm the body down. It is a different sort of science though, a different discipline. Dry needling, on the other hand, it's the hammer and nail approach. You're looking for those trigger points, those knots in the muscle, and you're stabbing the knot with the needle, potentially multiple times, to cause as much of that bit of micro trauma that's there that can then help the knot and the muscle repair, restructure, rebuild. And a nice little trick that you can do with the needles is you leave the needles in there for, I believe last time I checked it was up to 7 minutes. And then that sort of tricks the immune system because your immune system's like, we've got this, intruder that's come into the body through the skin. So it sends a whole bunch of white blood cells, repair cells to that area. They reach their max saturation around that 7-minute mark. So then you take the needle out and those repair cells stay in that area for a good amount of time, up to a few days, to help the body go into an accelerated state of healing and repair in that area.
What happens if you just leave trigger points? So if you don't go in and repair them, does that just cause more dysfunction in the muscle, which can then lead to, I suppose, maladaptive adaptation in the body?
Yeah. I don't see them disappear on their own. Like, it's very interesting. They just cause dysfunction in the muscle. So you have this kind of area of fibrotic, knotted muscle. Not that it's actually knotted, but it's just all fibrotic and broken and dysfunctional. That's walled off, by the body. There's inflammation that's around it, which is your immune system trying to get in. There's not much blood flow into the knot, so it can't heal and repair very well. So what tends to happen is if you look at a muscle and if, say, 1% of that muscle has got a trigger point or a knot in it, then it's not really functioning at 100%.
Sure.
It might only be 99% of the muscle that's functioning. And then as a result, more pressure goes onto the muscle to function. So then the more pressure can go into the trigger point and then it becomes bigger and then more trigger points can form. So it just kind of leads to this cycle of dysfunction that causes pain, issues, and just doesn't allow your muscle to function as well as it should.
Because I know in the past when I've had knotting in my muscles and that sort of stuff, initially I used to go on spiky ball, for example, before I started getting dry needling.
Mm-hmm.
For my body personally, I really like dry needling and I see a huge benefit from it. In your experience with the patients that you've treated, in those who have the capacity to get dry needled, because obviously it does hurt sometimes.
Yeah, it sucks.
What's more effective for healing those knotted muscles or trigger points?
I think the best thing that you can do on your own is the spiky ball or a massage ball. Getting in there, physically breaking it down. You try and do that every second day. The next stage up from that is like deep tissue muscle release, like a deep tissue massage or trigger point therapy. And then I do think, it's hard to say, there can be a lot of individual variation, but I find the dry needling to be most effective at causing the most amount of change.
Yep.
And if you just think about what's happening, when you use a spiky ball, you're breaking down that knot from the superficial layer and then slowly trying to chip into those deeper layers, but over a longer period of time. Whereas the beauty of the needle is it goes straight through the knot. And then if you keep stabbing it, it's going straight through the knot from superficial to deep onto the other side of it. So it's causing as much of that sort of breakdown of that knot so then your body can heal and repair it as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I do find, because trigger points tend to be quite sensitive, they hurt, especially when you press on them. The thing that hurts the most in a lot of cases for trigger point therapy or reducing the size of trigger points tends to be the most effective in my experience.
Sure.
It's like if someone's really sensitive and you can't really push on them very hard, they're not going to have as quick a response as someone that you can really get in there and break it down.
Yeah.
And then same with the needling, if for some people they can only sort of, they're only okay with like just putting the needle into the knot, getting the twitch, and just doing it once, and that's pretty excruciating for them. That's enough. But someone like yourself, where we go like in and out of needles, a lot, trying to cause as much sort of damage to that knot as possible, so that your body can repair it, you tend to improve much faster, or at least the size of the knot tends to get much smaller, much quicker.
Definitely, that's what I've noticed with treatment from you. So essentially, what you're saying there is, if you have the pain tolerance, try dry needling.
Yep.
Because it can be extremely beneficial.
Absolutely.
And you won't know if you don't try it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, depending on the patient and depending on where it is, there's some areas you can't needle, and deep tissue massage is fantastic and spiky ball is fantastic. But I do think dry needling, if you can handle it, is more effective at helping you reduce your pain a bit faster.
I've heard of people having their lungs punctured.
Yes.
Dry needling through the traps.
Through the traps is the most common area, I believe, of where it's like accidental.
Wow.
Yeah. Because you have the apex of the lung that's just up near the trap on both sides. So if you're kind of needling from the top down, then there is a risk that you can puncture the apex of the lung.
Yeah.
And that can lead to some, it's pretty brutal to have a collapsed lung. For some people, it can be much worse than others. For some people, it's just managing it and you can go home and let it recover, whereas other people need more intervention to help repressurize the lung. But I had a friend of mine who had some dry needling. For some reason, he had bruising through his ribs. The massage therapist who was performing the dry needling put the needle through his ribs into his lung.
That just doesn't sound like a good idea.
I do try and figure out what was she thinking? And I don't know. I think it's just I think it's just straight incompetence.
She was probably just like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
He's talking too much.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's one thing I did investigate of what did you say to her?
Yeah.
What did you say for her to want to needle your lung? So yeah, it is one of the accidents that can happen with dry needling is puncturing a lung. Never happened to me, fortunately, thank God. And with that specific technique where you're going sort of down, I don't do that. I sort of go from the back to the front and pull the trap away from that part of the body. So pull it up and then needle it through, which I think is a much more safer method. But then, there are other areas. It's just part of the potential things that can go wrong with dry needling is that you can get a needle through the ribs.
Of course. There's some risk.
There's definitely some risk. It's a very small risk, but the risk is there.
Where does stretching fall into this? Because we've spoken about, at home for those people who have muscular knots, it's important to get into them because if you don't address them, they will cause muscle dysfunction, especially if, say, you're someone who plays a bit of sport, for example. So you were saying the best thing at home is to really get into that spot with a spiky ball. The next step up from that is go get a remedial massage. From there, maybe go and get some dry needling. Where does stretching fall into this and say like a massage gun?
What we just discussed about the spiky ball, the needling, the massage, we're talking about knots within the muscle.
Yep.
That's its own thing. Stretching is very effective at increasing your range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
So stretching should be done every day. From my understanding, the evidence is 2 sets of 30 seconds per muscle group, at least 5 days a week to really get improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be done every day, no matter what. That doesn't help, I don't think, with the knots that are already there in your muscles, the trigger points that are already there. It does reduce, it stops them from getting any bigger, and it can help stop new ones from forming, but it doesn't do anything for the knots that are already there. So that's where the spiky ball is in its own category.
Yep.
Whereas stretching every day helps increase the blood flow to the area, also helps increase your range of motion, which for honestly 90% of people, especially over the age of 30, increasing their range of motion is such a big impact for them. It has such a beneficial impact for them that's where most people can just start and should be doing it even if you feel good. And especially for desk workers, I find hip range of motion, external rotation is very stiff, so sitting with your foot on your opposite knee while you're sitting up straight and then leaning forward really helps open up through the hips, the glutes, piriformis muscle, takes a bit of pressure off lower back as well. So it's nice and easy. You can do it while you're seated at the desk. It's perfect for the desk worker. A very important stretch, as well as stretching out through the pecs. Because if your arms are out in front of you, your pecs are in a shortened position, they become quite tight. If you can stretch out your pecs, it helps with your posture so that your shoulders aren't rounding forward as much.
Okay.
So stretching, very important. We should be stretching much more than I'd say 99% of people are, I would say.
Wow.
Yes.
So that was the pigeon pose you just kind of said.
I guess the pigeon is more of a deeper stretch, which is usually yoga, whereas the stretch that I'm saying I think is just the basic figure 4 stretch where you're seated.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, pigeon's also really good, but much deeper.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
How much money would you need, for us to put 40 needles in your calves all the way up to your upper back and traps, and then you've got to do a 30-meter sprint?
At least $50.
As in you're paying?
I would receive the $50 and do it.
Surely you need more.
Oh man!
In case they snap, right?
That's rough. That would be brutal. I mean,
if they snapped in you, your muscle tensors, there are filaments in you.
That'd be rough, man. I'd rather not.
Yeah. Everyone's got a number.
Yeah.
Some lower than others.
I think it depends on the day. If I've had my coffees and I've had a good sleep, I'd probably do it for like 20 grand, I reckon.
What about Easter Monday, 2025?
10 grand.
You're feeling really good.
I feel
today.
great.
Yeah, okay. No, that's an interesting one. Yeah, because I know.
What would yours be? What's your number?
It was a lot lower when I didn't consider the risks. 30-second sprint. Well, I'm just going to ask you, what's the chance of, I mean, the chance has to be high of them like breaking in my body, right? If I'm sprinting, like calves are contracting. Like it's a 30-second, 100% intensity sprint. Not 30-second, like 30 meter.
I mean, I'd like to think the path of least resistance would be they would just pop out.
Okay.
That's what I'd like to think.
Sure.
So I really don't know which way it would go. It just depends. Okay. And then I didn't even consider you said all the way up. So like up to.
Yeah, I suppose it's like, we're going
because then if we're
up.
talking about potential lung puncture as well, the price is definitely going up for me.
All right. Well, let's just keep it like lower body calves.
Lower body calves. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, I'd love to see what would happen. So.
How much money do you have?
Well, I'm treating you later today, so we could do it with you and get you to run up and down the hallway and see what happens. I'll give you a free treatment. How about that?
Mate, I reckon I would need, so just calves. Let's say calves and hamstrings.
Yep.
I'd need 40 grand.
40.
I'd need 40 grand.
Okay. What about a 2007 Land Cruiser Prado?
Done.
Okay, we're on. Today we're on.
Oh, man. All right, well, we're kind of at the last kind of segment now, and this is where I have a few reflective questions for you.
Okay.
What's something that you wish you knew earlier in life?
That recently I would say, what's something new? Don't burn bridges with people.
Cool. When do you feel most like yourself?
When I'm with my son. And also when I'm in nature.
What's an important thing that you've learnt in your lifetime?
Important thing that I've learnt in my lifetime is not to get caught up on the stuff, the little everyday society type stuff that doesn't really matter. Focus on the stuff that's real and that does matter, family being the utmost importance. And relationships, close relationships.
That's really good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is it that drives you every day?
It always changes, but I would say I'm someone that's constantly trying to improve and progress my life. And now as an extension of that, my son's life. So having a better future, which is quite general, of like, I really want to get to the point where I'm living the perfect lifestyle that I want to live. So getting to that drives me.
Creating a life that you want to live.
Creating the life that I want to live. Yes.
Very cool. What advice would you give to listeners who are considering becoming, say, a physio, chiro, or an osteo?
I would say be self-reflective. If someone's not getting better, instead of thinking that that's not working, or that doesn't work in general, it might actually be that you need to apply it in a better way, which can be a bit of a hard truth. But I've seen a lot of people over the years that will say like, oh, this adjustment style's better, and it's the adjustment style that doesn't result in like a pop or a crack. And I think that that's more of like a coping mechanism to be like, I'm not able to get the crack or the pop. Mm-hmm. So I'm justifying why this is the better way, even though I know deep down that I could do better, or I could try and, increase my skill on that certain technique. So be self-reflective, be critical, try and do better, learn from your mistakes. That's what I'd say. That's what's really helped me in the clinic that I work in, and where I think I see a lot of people get caught up.
No, very, very cool, man. And I think people can apply that to their own lives outside of that as well. Just having that hard conversation, that honest conversation.
Yeah, I think the word I was looking for was like accountability. You know, like put it on you to perform to the best of your abilities. Don't use your excuses as to why you're not doing something a certain way, or you're not doing as good as you want to be doing.
Very cool. How would you like to be remembered by people you know?
Well, it's a big question. Loving, respected. I would like. I think being respected for some reason in my head is like super important. Yeah. And a good father, I think, would be at the top of the list now as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool. I think you'll definitely be respected for all those things, mate.
Thank you.
What do you believe is the meaning of life?
Geez, that's the big question, isn't it?
Seems to be.
I think the meaning of life is to as much, how do I say this the right way? I can't. I'm just going to say it. My recent experience with having a child has made me think the meaning of life is to have kids and to live a life through them. That's honestly what I believe.
Sure.
I think that a baby is the closest thing to God in my view. So I do think that, like giving life, procreating is the meaning of life.
And when you say living life through them, what do you mean by that?
I think that for me, when I had my son, it made me realize, like, I think this is the secret to the universe that I've been looking for a very long time. And I kept looking in all the wrong places. And I kept trying to figure out what it was that I was looking for. But then I had my son and I was like, this is what I've been looking for. Like, this is the only thing that's truly meant something to me on like a much deeper level that I couldn't imagine. And has exceeded my expectations.
And has provided you with more purpose, it seems.
Yeah, all the purpose I could ever ask for.
Okay, very cool. Last question is, if someone you knew was struggling with their, say, mental health and didn't know how to reach out, what would you say to them?
I mean, that's been me for a very long period of my life, and it wasn't until my wife was pregnant and I faced the reality of having my own son that I reached out for help and got therapy, and it was like such a good thing for me to do at that time, and really, really helpful for me in my own growth and journey. I think it's one of those things where like you just have to find that reason to want to be better. And I really like at one point in my life, I didn't know what that reason was. And I was really lucky for me that it was my son that gave me that reason. So I would just hope that for people that want to reach out, do it. If you do it for the people that you love that are around you, by extension, it really helps you. It's like a nice little side effect of if you do something for someone else in that sense, or if you're giving in the way that you want to reach out for the people around you, it benefits you tremendously. So I'd say if you can't do it, if you're not doing it for yourself, then do it for the people around you.
Yeah. And would you say to someone who is a friend of yours who you might see who's struggling, like that's kind of the advice that you would give?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the silver bullet, if that's even the analogy to use at the moment that I use, is, if you want to have kids one day, then do it for them.
Sure.
And you'll be better for it, and they'll thank you for it, and it'll rub off on them in such a positive way.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to think about for a second, because what you're saying is sometimes people don't want to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
And what if I'm hearing you correctly, in your life, when you made that change, it might have started off initially as for someone else, but that's benefited you, and you can see that now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. That's really interesting. Just quickly on therapy, because we didn't really talk much about it. How beneficial has therapy been for your life?
So beneficial. Really helped me with my own relationships, and just helped me understand. I think like the interesting one is going back, talking to someone, shining a light on things that have happened in the past to help you perceive them in different ways.
Yep.
Was really, really helpful for me. To be like, oh, okay, that actually wasn't okay. Oh, that was okay. And it just like allows you to relive your lived experiences to then help you come out of those in a better way instead of in a negative way.
Yeah. It really helps you process things, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, well, I guess you've already processed them in one way, but for me, it helped me reprocess them in a different, more positive light, or at least in a way that helped me understand myself a bit better and my lived experience a bit better.
Yeah. So it helps you to heal, really.
Yeah, very much so.
Because, from those early experiences, we certainly can create a narrative in our head. And like the body, our brain likes to adapt and adjust. And that can really affect us if that narrative, for example, is a little bit unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's still definitely a lot more work to do, but I'm glad I've done some work, and I still need to get back on the train and keep going.
That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
No, well, it's been lovely to have you on.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
I'll see you later. Maybe we can run down the hallway.
Yeah, I've got the needles ready.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you.
Oh, man, thanks. We did it. We made it.